This is the Jeff Cowan coming to you from thejeffcowan.com with my weekly podcast entitled Success in Professional Sales and Life in General. Welcome back to the podcast, and you're going to notice right off the bat we're doing another week with no sports coat. Why? Because we're out here in Southern California and we're experiencing triple-digit heat. Now, and it's hot, not only outside, but it's even hot inside here in the air conditioner, so I don't want to wear a jacket because I don't want to sweat here on camera, but I'm still working. I got a great podcast for you. And by the way, some of you from Las Vegas, New Mexico, Arizona called in last week and talked about it's three digits in temperatures. Man, we do that all the time. Well, we don't. We're used to being about 80 degrees, so that extra 25, 30 degrees, boy, it really makes a difference when you throw it on out of nowhere like this came from. But let's get back to this podcast. You're going to remember from last week we're doing a two-parter. We were talking about how to make a great first impression. And how we decided to talk about this is I was getting a lot of text and emails and telephone calls from business owners and sales managers who were saying they felt their salespeople were losing the sale because they were making a bad first impression. So what I did is I started a series where I'm going to give you 8 tips on how to make a great first impression, and we covered the first 5 last week. We'll finish this one up by doing the last 3 this week. So last week, let's just kind of refresh here. We talked about the power of the smile, and how if you smile, somebody smiles back. We talked about the key to being enthusiastic. You know, you're enthusiastic, they're enthusiastic, and we talked about how you don't want to be overly enthusiastic, because I think that's what sometimes people fear they're being, but you don't want to be just like a dead potato either, right? We talked about being confident, and I told you that confident typically comes from you knowing your product. You need to know your product inside and out. You need to know what people are reading on the internet about your product. You need to know your competition's product inside and out, because by doing that, it gives you great confidence when you're talking to prospective buyers. Now, you notice every time I hit confidence, I really spend a few minutes on that. And the reason I do is because this is one of the things I see salespeople fail at the most. They really don't know enough about their product before they step in front of their customers. So study on that. We also talked about number 4, which was to be relaxed. You've done this before. You relax. This is no big deal. There's nothing you're going to say, Mr. Prospect, Mrs. Customer is going to upset me no matter what it is. And then number 5, we talked about the power of gaining and maintaining eye contact and how that's so tough for many people to do these days because we're so used to staring at our phones and communicating through texting and emailing that we've forgotten the art and the skill that it takes to not only make eye contact, but to maintain it throughout the conversation. So that was part 1, and we're now ready for part 2, so let's jump in. Number 6, give your first name. Give your first name. Now you'll notice I didn't say full name, I said first name, and here's why. I've discovered over time that in the opening stages of a sale, if I give my full name, hello, my name is Jeff Cowan, that most people won't hear it. They don't hear it because they're trying to hear the first name and at the same time trying to hear the last name, so they miss the first name trying to hear the last name. They hear the last name because they're trying to hear the first name. They don't get it, and so if they don't know it, then they can't ask me, they can't talk to me and use my name. Should they need to call back later, should they need to go home and think about it or something, they don't know who to call back and ask for. Now I know this sounds crazy, but here's what happens. A lot of times in a lot of sales, your prospects won't want to look dumb. So they won't stop you and ask for clarification. What was your name again? Because again, they don't want to look like they're not paying attention or they're dumb or any of that stuff. So what I've learned is instead of giving both names, but by just giving my first name up front 2 times inside of 60 seconds, they'll hear it, they'll remember it, they'll use it. Hello, sir. My name is Jeff. I'll be the person that's helping you out here today now that you're here, and your name is? Okay, well, thank you for coming in. I really appreciate you coming in. And like I said, my name is Jeff. I'll be the person helping you out and guiding you through the process and looking at our products and all the options and all the benefits that it has. As we're doing this, if you have any questions for me during this time, please don't hesitate to stop me and ask. Again, my name is Jeff. You say I said it 2, 3 times inside of 60 seconds. They hear it, they remember it, they use it, and that's the whole thing here is I got to make sure they remember me, they know my name and as much as they can about me because I am the sell. I know I'm there to sell my product, but if I don't sell myself and get these people where they're more intimate with me, the chances of me making a sale and a great first impression is slim to none. First name, right? Number 7. Now, this one's a little bit controversial because it's probably going to be the exact opposite you've heard when you've read most selling books. It's probably going to be the exact opposite you've heard in workshops, probably the exact opposite you've heard when listening to audio tapes, maybe other podcasts and watching videos and stuff. But here's what it is. I believe every prospect should be addressed as Mr. or Miss until they give you permission to use their first name. Now, there is a little asterisk with this, and here's what it is. First, let's go back and see why this is so controversial. The reason it's controversial is because in most selling systems, you will be encouraged to use the customer's first name as much as possible, because the more you use their first name and you get comfortable, the more likely they are to be comfortable with you and want to do business with you today. And I think that's true if your presentation, and I'm not talking about the whole sell, but your presentation takes 30 minutes or more, 30 minutes or more, right? Okay, it's okay then to get on a first name basis, but otherwise I would stick with Mr. or Miss until they give you permission to use their first name. Now, permission will come one of two ways. Either immediately they will look at you and say, you don't have to call me Mr. Cowan, that's my dad, just call me Jeff, and then you're good to go. But you're going to be stunned, and I'm not using that word lightly, stunned at the number of people who will not stop you and will actually let you continue to refer to them as Mr. or Miss. Now, where did I discover this from? Because again, everybody else, it seems like, says the exact opposite. The quicker you get on a first name basis with a customer, the more likely they are to do business with you today and long term. That's the general rule. So why is this different? Because one of the things I've done throughout my career is I've gone into many businesses, worked with many salespeople, sales staffs in the business in general, and in doing that I like to call and I like to look at their survey scores if they have them, and I like to call their customers and ask, do a customer service type of thing. And I got to tell you, if I had a dime for every time I heard somebody say, well, you know what, when I ask him, Mr. Customer, I see here you said you weren't totally satisfied with the experience. You felt like you weren't respected. So exactly what do you mean by that? Well, you know how salespeople are. They're your best friends and they act like they've known you forever. I mean, it's that old salesman type of stuff. That's what turns me off. All right, well, again, if I had a dime for every time somebody said that, then I wouldn't have to work today. So what I've learned is there is a time limit to it. Again, if your presentation takes 30 minutes or longer, it's okay to break down that wall and start using their first name, because by that time you should have a good enough relationship and rapport that it's okay. But since most sales out there, most presentations take well under 30 minutes, I have discovered by using Mr. or Mrs. when you're addressing somebody is far more effective, and the customers warm up to it quicker if you wait until they give you the permission to do so. I've also discovered one more note on it. I've also discovered that there's been many times for as long as a year or 2 years, I've addressed somebody for Mr. or Miss, and somewhere along the line, down the line, after doing business with me for a long time, they'll say, look, we've been doing business for how long? You don't have to refer to me anymore as Mr. You can call me by, and they give me your first name. So that's number 6. Give your first name. Number 7, use Mr. or Miss. And we got one more, number 8, but before we do, I want to tell you about these books again, what I've learned from attending over 35 Indy 500s. I'm telling you, if you're serious about sales, motivation, leadership, management, or just some life lessons in general, this is the book. I mean, it's selling really, really well. It's available in hardcover. It's in soft cover. It's soon going to be in audio. You can get it downloaded on Amazon to your tablets if you want to. I mean, it's a great book. What I do is I tell a story that happened at the track on one of the races very briefly, and I tell you the lesson learned. I tell you how I applied it to my life, and they give you some points to ponder. People are loving the book. As a matter of fact, I self-published this book, and I've got a major international publisher talking to me right now. We're in negotiations. They want to take over the publishing. That's how well the book's selling. If you're in sales and you're looking for a new career, if you're thinking about getting into sales and you want to know what's something that you could get into, make a lot of money, Write Service, Write Your Own Paycheck is another book I wrote. I'm going to show you how to make $100,000 a year. That also comes with a video program. That'd be something for you to check out. And then one more thing I want to do here, one more time for one of my good friends, Chris Saraceno. He wrote a book called The Theory of Five. I mean, it's rated very, very high on Amazon. This is a great book. I usually don't promote other people's books. I'm promoting this one because it's a great book. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm not doing it just because he's a good friend, but I'm telling you, this is a good book. So you should get all 3 of these books. Go to Amazon right now. I mean, you only live once. Let's get this thing done. Let's get back to making a great first impression. We've learned so far through last week and this week that the steps to making a great first impression every single time is to smile, be enthused, be confident, be relaxed, gain and maintain eye contact, give your first name, and then number 7, always refer to everybody as Mr. or Mrs. until they give you permission to use their first name. So now we're ready for number 8, and that is the handshake. Now, this one here, I'm a little bit down the middle on because I understand where we are with society, so I'm going to let you decide whether or not you want to do it. I personally promote the handshake because I think it drops barriers. I think it calms people down. I think it helps to drop walls. I shake everybody's hands. I mean, as recently as just a couple of days ago, I was checking into a hotel, and as I was checking in, they handed me my keys, it told me where the elevator was, and pointed down the hallway, and I just basically put my hand across the table and said, hey, thank you for getting me checked in. And it's amazing how these people melt. Oh, well, that's okay, Mr. Cowan. You know, I'm just doing my job. When I was checking into the airport the other day, they handed me my boarding passes. I reached across the counter and said, hey, thank you for helping me get checked in this morning. No problem, Mr. Cowan, just doing my job. It really relaxes people. So I'm a big handshaker. But a lot of people today are germaphobes and they're not into handshaking. And so if you're one of those people and you're not comfortable don't do it. I don't think it'll necessarily cost you a sale, but I do think it will be beneficial if you can get comfortable doing handshakes. Now, talking about handshakes, you've all heard the rules. You don't want a fish type of handshake where it's just kind of cold and clammy. There's no strength in it. You want a firm handshake. Whether you're a man or a woman, you want a firm handshake. And I'll tell you what, I don't mean to be sexist here, but it's extremely impressive to me when I go out to do business, when I'm working with a saleswoman and she's got a strong, firm handshake. It just exudes confidence. It just exudes that I'm going to be taken care of very good here. But there are some caveats to this. And so I want to be very careful with this because I want to try not to offend anybody, but sometimes the handshake and whether or not you should do it will be dictated by somebody's ethnicity. So here's what I've discovered. If you're dealing with somebody that's a first generation person to the United States of America, I'm talking about that right now, for example, a first generation person from Asia, for example, you really wouldn't want to shake their hands whether it's the man or the woman because it's not always in all those cultures to do that. Now typically when we get into the second or the third generation we're okay, but the first generation you just want to be careful. When it comes to people from the Middle Eastern countries, especially the ones who practice the Muslim faith, you would never extend your hand to a Muslim woman, especially first generation. Again, you get in second, third generation, it might be okay, but be very careful with that. Almost always okay to shake the man's hand. Same thing with the Hispanic ethnicity, if you will. First generation, you can shake the man's hand. As a matter of fact, they're usually extremely friendly. And then the women, it's about 50-50. But typically, and I could go on and on with ethnicities, but the different ethnicities, just pay attention to them. If you sense somebody's first generation, you may want to watch the handshake and how you do it. When it comes to second, third generations, that typically they start to get into our cultures more, and you'll be okay. The only other thing that I wish to say when it comes to the handshake is when you're working with couples. Now this is key. If you're a male and you're working with a man and a woman couple, you always want to shake the man's hand first and then the woman's, okay? Now, if you do that, and let's say that you're talking to a couple